Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Top Deck, a magic podcast for the good, the bad, and the lucky. Once again, I'm your host, Christian Kingsbury, and I am here with my co host, Eric Nappy. How are you doing, man?
Good. How's it going?
Pretty well. I gotta say, I'm feeling pretty lucky today.
Are you feeling lucky?
I am feeling lucky. You wanna know why I'm feeling lucky today?
I would love to know why.
That's surprising. Usually you don't care.
You're right, I don't.
I'm gonna tell you anyway. So I just learned in the past couple days a couple things. One, as you already know, I learned that the card Command Beacon was only available in one of the five new commander sets, which
Doesn't make any sense.
it seems like something they should not have done. But along with that, it's seen a sizable price jump.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that because I needed that card. I play a lot of decks where the commanders die a lot,
hmm
and well, it's sometimes nice to forego the extra cost of playing your commander at least once.
Yeah, and your commanders die a lot because most of them are bullshit.
Exactly. We're on the same page here. But I tell you who's probably feeling a little more lucky than us. And
Nobody is more
that,
lucky than us.
well, yeah, debatable. I don't know, did you buy a red white deck?
No. Although I
Yeah,
could.
I didn't either. Because, you know, it kind of sucks. Or at least that's what we all assume. Well, Blade of Selves has seen the most sizable price jump and is now worth $15.
Yeah, it's pretty insane.
And that one got me thinking, I wonder if they knew it was going to see hype. And I wonder if they only put it in the red white deck because of that.
I mean, they had to know it was going to be good. I'll be touching on it later, actually.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
but
I thought that was kind of interesting. And it's funny because there are going to be so many people out there who bought the red white deck just because they're like, well, all my other friends got the cool ones. I guess I'll get the boring one. And now they're just like living it up. So yeah, gotta get all about that $15. That's enough to buy half of another commander set.
Just about. Anyway, so there's been a few exciting things that have happened before we get into the meat of our episode that I think we should probably touch on.
Yeah. By the way, we should probably talk about like what we're doing this episode. We
Yeah, I
didn't say that.
guess.
You probably already noticed, but we're talking about Commander.
Yeah, it's in the title.
Yeah, we're this is going to be the Commander 2015 set review. We won't be going over all the cards, but more on that in a moment. Go on.
Okay, so as everyone knows, if you even care about Magic a little bit, there was a few possible spoilers for Oath of the Gatewatch that came.
Yes.
And we might be getting a new basic land. Um,
Yeah, from what I hear, despite saying unconfirmed on Mythic Spoiler, I've heard that they are basically confirmed at this point. Um, I don't know why people are saying that. Maybe it's just speculation that, there's speculation on the speculation so that we can speculate while we speculate.
I like
But,
to speculate Yo Dog. Just Yo Dog.
dog. But, yeah, it seems like what's going on. And for those of you who don't know what we're talking about, there are three new spoilers. A new Kozilek, what seems to be a new basic land, and then a new mythic land. And I think we should start off just by talking about what is supposed to be the new basic land.
Yes, for sure.
So this land, it's called Wastes, and all it shows is full art land, Wastes. It says basic land. It's got a diamond type symbol, which we have yet to see in all of Magic, and then nothing. There is no basic land type to this card.
Mhm. And it's interesting to point out, it doesn't appear to tap for one, it taps for this diamond, which,
Yes.
I mean, we're assuming is colorless.
Right, and that's actually what I was going to next bring up is that it seems to be that the consensus for what we as a community think this card does is that it is not this is not the sixth color. This is not something that's going to, at least we think, fundamentally change all of Magic and things like domain and stuff like that. It's fairly widely believed that this is just like a denotation of what something would have to be if it has to be colorless. So, as an example, we can come back to Waste, but just to kind of prove what we're talking about here, let's go to Kozilek. And Kozilek's casting cost is 8 and 2 diamonds. And it's believed that what that means is that, you know, you've got the 8. And what this has always meant is that this can be of any color or colorless. But up until now, there has been no way to say, well, you can only spend colorless to cast this. You know, if you have a colorless card, an artifact creature, something like that, you can still spend like all red and blue mana to cast it. Well, what it's believed is that those 2 diamonds say that you can only use colorless mana to cast this portion. So for Kozilek, you could say use 8 green mana and 2 colorless to cast it.
Yep. And I think that's what makes the most sense, but you never know with WotC. They like throwing curveballs at us.
Yeah, and truthfully, even that explanation, while that does seem to be the most reasonable explanation, it isn't, you know, I just lost my train of thought. Welcome to the real world. Hey dude, what was I talking about?
Whether or not it's the most logical reasoning, but it may not be.
Right. Okay, thank you. It doesn't necessarily make the most sense, because if they were going to do this for this block, why wait until the small second set?
To be fair, it's not going to be as much of a small set as we've had in the past, considering there's only 2 sets per block now. I think they are supposed to be a bit more even in size. But yes, you are correct, they're a bit smaller.
Is it large?
I don't know if it's large, but it's not as big of a difference between the larger and smaller sets.
Okay. Yeah, so, you know, the argument against what we've said so far is that why didn't they print the new Ulamog with these restrictions? And also, why didn't they print, you know, with all the colorless cards, all the devoid cards in the first set, why didn't they print Wastes then? Why couldn't this have been a block-wide mechanic?
And that we'll probably have to wait and find out.
Yeah, no kidding. We don't know what is going on. So let's actually quickly talk about Kozilek. So I mentioned it was 8 and 2 diamonds. It's for a legendary creature, 12/12. So he's big.
He just a little bit.
And he's got a great cast ability. So when you cast him, if you have fewer than 7 cards in hand, you draw cards equal to the difference. So you cast him, draw up to 7 cards. That's good. That's really good.
Yeah.
He also has Menace, because
why not?
It's everywhere now. So just give him Menace. It's like evasion without just being trample or flying or something like that. And his last ability is another really powerful one. Discard a card with converted mana cost X, counter target spell with converted mana cost X. So we've got sort of a Hisoka Minamo Sensei type ability going on here. And as many have pointed out, that's really powerful, especially in something like a ramp deck, because you end up, especially after drawing up to 7 cards, you end up with all these useless ramp spells and like Manadors and stuff in your hand.
Yeah, you have a bunch of just nothing that's going to help you actually win the game.
Exactly. So to be able to use those in not only a positive way, but also in a way that's actually quite powerful, just being able to, for no mana, just counter spells while you already have your 12/12 Menace on the field, it's pretty big.
Yeah.
But we're not going to spend too much time on this, because we've got a lot of stuff to cover today.
We got a whole episode planned out, and it was
So let's
planned
quickly,
before all of this happened.
yeah, really. So let's quickly discuss Mirror Pool. This one enters the battlefield tapped. Actually, why don't you go ahead and say this one? I've been talking too much.
Yeah, just so Miracle. Yeah, enters the battlefield tap. It taps to add a diamond to your mana pool, and then for 2 and a diamond and tap and sacrifice, you can copy target instant or sorcery that you control. Basically, you get to copy an instant or sorcery. And for 4 diamond tap and sacrifice, you can put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of any target creature you control. Which,
Right.
that kind of ability I love. I love making tokens. I love making copies. We're gonna get into this a lot today.
We really are.
But I mean, to me, it's not incredible, but it's good.
Yeah, it's this is going to be an EDH staple.
Yeah, it's gonna go in a lot of EDH decks.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of what I would expect out of a land named Mirror Pool.
Yeah, it's pretty much
And
exactly what you expect.
Exactly. And I think it's cool. I don't know about like standard applications. It could, but frankly, I have no idea what's going to happen to standard when this new set comes in because we don't really know anything, truthfully. So we're just going to leave it up to speculation at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's not much to be said just yet.
Indeed. All right, so we can go ahead and move on to the new Commander set, Commander 2015. And for those of you who don't know, this newest Commander set was 5 decks, all enemy color pairs. So you had white-black, blue-red, black-green, red-white, and finally green-blue. And much like previous Commander sets, you have your 2 new legendary creatures that can be used as commanders, and you also have 1 reprinted commander. For the sake of time, we will only be going over the 2 new commanders for each deck, as well as specific cards that we have picked out from each deck. So we're each going to be doing 1 of the new commanders and 2 chosen new cards from each deck. It's going to help us get through it a little bit quicker and also kind of like get rid of some of the chaff.
Yeah, because there are some cards that are new that are just not that exciting.
Indeed. So, I guess let's start. We're going to begin with the white-black deck. So the Orzhov deck, if you're familiar with Ravnican guilds, as you should be, because there are some Ravnican things going on in this deck, as well as Theros things.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to begin by talking about Daxos the Returned. Daxos is a 3-mana 2/2, 1 white-black legendary creature zombie soldier. When you cast an enchantment spell, you get an experience counter. And now we should talk about experience counters.
Yep.
Experience counters are the new theme, the new gimmick, if you will, for this set.
Well, one of them.
What?
Well,
Yes,
the new gimmick.
Sorry, that's not it. That's not. That's one of the big new things.
Yeah.
And experience counters, each deck has 1 commander that deals with experience counters. Experience counters are put on yourself. So it's important to note that because that means they cannot be interacted with except for through proliferate.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not getting rid of these things. Just very important to know. And for each of these commanders, they do something related to how many experience counters you have. So for Daxos, he has an activated ability, 1 white-black. You put a black and white spirit enchantment creature token onto the battlefield, and his power and toughness are equal to the number of enchantments, or not enchantment spells, experience counters you have. So needless to say, the white-black deck is very enchantment focused.
Yes. I bought the white-black deck. I think there are something around 28 ways to trigger the experience counter ability. in there.
That's a lot of ways.
Yes.
Yeah. And having a chance to play against the deck, I would say that it felt relatively strong. It didn't feel overpowered.
Hmm. You,
Um,
you of course, in that game got lucky and had Trigon Predator most of the game, so I couldn't
Yeah.
really play anything.
That's actually a really good point to bring up. I did kind of have you slightly locked down. I think everyone had each other slightly locked down except for the person playing Mirren.
Yes.
But more on that later. So yeah, I feel like Daxos. I like Daxos as a commander. I feel like it's one of those commanders where it's not so busted that it's just never going to live, but it is powerful enough that if you get to the late game and you have a soft lock on the board, you can just dump a bunch of mana and make a bunch of dudes. And I mean, the fact that they are enchantments means that they also trigger Constellation,
Yep.
which there is some of in the deck. So
Mhm.
I'm pretty excited about them.
Yeah, it was. It's definitely an enjoyable deck to play. I can tell you that right now.
Indeed. So I'm gonna. Do you wanna? Okay. How do you feel about this? Do you think we should go over both the commanders first and kind of go back and forth?
I think we should do both the commanders, and then each of us do both of our pick set.
All right, sounds good. Then why don't you introduce us to your new friend?
All right. So I got Karlov of the Ghost Council, and he is a 2/2 for a black and a white. He's a bear. He's also a ghost, but he's a bear. And whenever you gain life, you put 2+1/+1 counters on him, and for a black and a white, and remove 6+1/+1 counters, you can exile a creature. Just get rid of it. It goes away.
Indeed.
My personal favorite part of Karlov of the Ghost Council is that his name is actually just Carl. He's Carl. He is actually also Tesa's great grandfather or something, or grandfather. I'm not sure.
I thought it was grandfather, but I don't know why I thought that.
I'm pretty sure it's grandfather. But so that's
Yeah.
cool. Since Tesa is also in the deck, so flavor win. As far as Karlov goes, though, I'm not sure how much I like him as a commander. I really like him as one of the 99 in either Obsidat, or not, yeah, Obsidat or Loro.
Laura. Yeah.
I think he's really good in that situation, especially if you can get some protection on him.
I kind of see Karlov as a steroid-induced Ajani's Pride Mate.
Yeah, he really kind of is.
And I mean, the power level between them, there's a big gap there, but they basically feel like they're doing mostly the same thing. I mean, if you've got 6+1/+1 counters on this dude, you've got a 2-mana 8/8 effectively.
Yeah. And you can easily do that in a couple of turns in some life gain decks.
Right. But it is important to know you have to remove those +1/+1 counters to get rid of a creature. So while this guy can become huge, it kind of feels like he's more like a battery.
Mm-hmm. I feel like
Where,
you can very easily play him either as a repeatable removal spell or as just a giant beater.
Yeah,
so
I mean, that's very true.
He's really flexible, but you have to get some kind of protection on him, or he's gonna draw hate if you get him big.
Indeed, he is. All right, so those are the white-black commanders. We're going to move it along here. I want to talk about a card that is, I don't know if it's my favorite card from the set, but it's the card that is probably the most impactful for me out of this whole set, and that is Bastion Protector. Now, Bastion Protector is only seen in the white-black deck, and it's a white creature, 2 and a white, for a 3/3. So already that's actually pretty decent stats. You don't usually see that in white. Well, I mean, you see decent stats in white, but you don't see 3-mana 3/3s.
No, you really don't.
But that's not all. There's a huge upside to this card.
Yeah.
And it's a very specific one. It says, commander creatures you control have +2/+2, and have indestructible. So, this card's good in a commander deck. I mean, period. It's nice to have a creature or anything that helps protect your commander, and the extra boost is also great. But there's a very specific reason why I like this, and that is because I play a Sigarda Voltron deck. And one of the most important things about playing a Sigarda Voltron deck is you want two things. You want to get her up to 7 power, and you want to make her indestructible. Sigarda already cannot be targeted by your opponent and cannot be sacrificed, already has evasion through flying, and already has a sizable body at 5/5. But if you can get her up to 7 power, you can kill somebody in 3 hits or 2 if you manage to give it double strike, which is also possible in the deck. But she does not have indestructible, so she's available to be killed by board wipes, and she's also not 7 power. This card, for 3 mana, which is not a lot, does both of those things. And that's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
So I can't wait to get my copy of this card. I wish there was a foil one. But I feel like this is going to be a tutored for card often.
I mean, it does a lot of what you want it to do with very little mana. It's it's a little scary.
It is. And it's good in this deck too, just because it's good in anything that needs a good commander.
Yeah, I mean, really, with any commander deck, you're going to want your commander to stay on the field, so indestructible is going to be good.
It's very rare that the power and toughness boost is a bad thing as well. It can happen, but it's rare. All right, so my last card that I'm going to be talking about out of this deck is Grasp of Fate. Grasp of Fate, I had to read like 3 times before I fully understood it. And it's not because it's complicated, it's because... Oh, I'm banging my mic here. It's because I was missing a key 3 words that says for each opponent. So this card is an enchantment. It's 1 and 2 white. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target non-land permanent that player controls until Grasp of Fate leaves the battlefield. That's what I kept reading. It says for each opponent. Exile up to 1 target non-land permanent. So that makes it Oblivion Ring, but for everyone.
I mean, you can't go wrong with that.
See, I thought you could, because I'm sitting here thinking to myself, this is just Oblivion Ring. This is just Oblivion Ring, but they made it cost double white. I don't get it. Like, I don't get it at all. It doesn't necessarily fix Oblivion Ring. That's just kind of weird. And then I read it like the 4th time, and I was like, oh, that's real good.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah. This card I like because not only is its power level high, but its power level is only as strong as your enemy's hatred for you. Because while you can get rid of 3 big things or more, depending on how many people are playing, you also have that many people trying to destroy this thing.
Yes.
It's very likely that Grasp of Fate is not going to stick around very long. And it's a very easy way to turn everyone against you, if it does.
I mean, yeah. Luckily, there's not a ton of these decks have hard enchantment removal.
Yeah, it makes this card very good if you're only playing the precons.
I mean, outside of the precons, it obviously is going to be less strong, but still pretty strong.
Yeah, I find that, I mean, as may already be known, I play a lot of green, white, and commander. So I always find myself with a just like surplus of artifact and enchantment removal because I'm playing the 2 colors that have probably the most of it.
Definitely.
At least green. And so I always find it confusing when I'm like, why don't you have an answer to all my enchantments? What do you mean you don't have a bunch of dead cards in your hand until someone finally plays an enchantment? So I foresee myself casting this card a lot. I also foresee it dying a lot, but I also foresee it doing good things.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a good card.
Indeed. All right, let's move to yours.
Yes. So my first card here is Deadly Tempest. Where is it? So Daily Tempest is a sorcery for 4 and 2 black, and it destroys all creatures, and then each player loses life equal to the number of creatures he or she controlled that were destroyed this way. So, it's your typical black board wipe, 6 mana. That's your that's what you're gonna get. But then it has this this upside of it's dealing damage to people. In this deck, you normally don't have a ton of creatures on the board, so you're gonna get hit for like 3 damage, 4 damage.
Yeah, this deck has the potential to make a bunch of tokens with Daxos, but
Daxos and Teysa can both make a bunch of tokens.
But you're probably not going to be setting up that board state just to break it down.
Exactly. Whereas I know the black-green deck has quite a bit of token creation in it, because
as does the blue-green deck.
Yes, it does. So you're gonna play this, take like 3 or 4 damage, and cause both of your opponents, or however many of your opponents will take, 10, 15 damage possibly, which is pretty nice.
It's kind of like a sorcery that has the flavor of Massacre Worm.
Yes, it's very similar.
And they go very well together.
Besides that, not too much to say about it. It blows stuff up. Board wipes are always good in EDH. Like, there's never a point in EDH where you're not like, maybe a board wipe is going to be okay here.
Any multiplayer game, if you're the person with the board wipes, you basically have control of the whole situation, unless you're the person with the counter spells.
Yep, which there's actually not a ton of counter spells in this.
No, there really is not. Are there any?
I want to say
some.
I want to say there's a couple in the blue-red deck.
Yeah. I guess there's Mystic Confluence, but like for sure. But yeah, this isn't like a counterspell heavy precon.
No, they don't like putting counterspells in the precons because Wizards has decided that good counterspells are not fun.
This is true.
And they have decided that because they're wrong. Anyway, so second card is Corpse Augur. And I really like this card. It is 3 and a black for a 4/2 zombie wizard. And when Corpse Augur dies, you draw X cards and lose X life, where X is the number of creature cards in target player's graveyard. So
this guy's gonna be drawing you a lot of cards.
Yes, that's always the plan with him. He is also in the green-black deck, which is sacrifice-based. So I'm going to kind of focus my discussion more around that because you can combo off with him in it. You sacrifice a bunch of creatures, and then you sacrifice Corpse Augur, and then you just target yourself and draw a ton of stuff. Refill your hand. And then, of course, in just any other deck, it'll be a good thing to have around if there's a sacrifice deck or a dredge deck or something that's using its graveyard for any reason.
Yeah, and 2 things I want to note is the lose X life a part of it. That matters a lot less in EDH, first of all.
Oh yeah,
because you start with twice the amount of life that you would normally start with, and also there's a lot less tempo related stuff. You find yourself getting to an arms race often.
Yes.
And so usually if you're dying, it's because you died and like you took 28 damage. Just out of nowhere, you're at 26 health and suddenly they're like, all right, I play this card and I'm gonna overrun you or whatever.
Yeah, losing 5 life to draw 5 cards is not gonna really hurt you most of the time.
Not at all. And the other reason why I wanted to bring that up is that in the black-white deck, there is a little bit of life gain going on.
There is a bit. It does exist. It's not huge, though.
No, not huge. But it's there so you cannot feel as sad about things.
Yes.
Just checking through to make sure I'm not lying here.
It has to have life gain in it. They put Karlov in it. It has some life gain in it.
Right, yeah, that's what I was like. They got Karlov. There's Underworld Coinsmith,
There's that.
Yes.
There's the cards with extort. There's a couple of those.
Oh, right, extort. Yeah, that works really good with Karlov. I didn't even think
Hmm.
about that. There's death grasp. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So there's some things in here, not a ton, but you know. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, that's all I got to say about Corpse Augur. It's a fun card.
it is, and a good one. All right. So let's move on to the Izzet deck, the blue-red deck, and I'm going to begin talking about Mizzix of the Ismagnus. Which is
That's
a wonderful name.
It is a wonderful name.
I had a very hard time pronouncing it. This is a goblin wizard.
Goblin.
It is a goblin. It is a 2/2 for 2 colorless, blue-white. You know, we're gonna have to stop saying that because it's not just 2 colorless, blue-white.
See, that's
It's
why I
two-
always say it's two and a red and white, or a red and a blue.
That's annoying. Whatever. All right, so this guy, guy.
That looks like I'm gonna guess a guy. I don't know. Goblins are kind of hard to tell their gender.
Yeah. If it's a girl, okay. We didn't know.
Sorry.
Sorry, Mizzix. So whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell with converted mana cost greater than the number of experience counters you have, you get an experience counter. It's complex.
It's
But
kind of complex.
you need to keep playing more and more expensive spells to keep getting more and more experience counters, and that's not that difficult to do, but it's not easy necessarily. They
Yeah.
purposefully make it not just easy to just get all these experience counters because instants and sorceries that you cast cost one colorless less to cast for each experience counter you have. So stuff starts getting crazy.
Oh yeah.
You start just flinging spells, which is what blue red has always been known for, is just kind of spell slinging.
Mm-hmm.
And this card, well, it's another one of those engine cards, right? You have this as your commander because you're like, I just want to play like 10 spells in one turn. It's possible that it's a storm commander.
Yeah, which would be pretty interesting since there really is no good way to do storm right now in EDH.
Yeah, I have heard that there are some people who play storm in EDH. It is doable, but I'm sure they just love this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just anytime you get a cost reduction on something, you need to expect it to be powerful because it always seems like it's not going to be as powerful as it is.
Yeah, and then suddenly you're casting lightning bolt for red.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. It was a joke.
You can do this in Mizzix. You can cast lightning bolt for a single red mana.
But you can get some pretty powerful effects for incredibly cheaply when you've got him going.
Yeah, definitely.
Like imagine overloading Cyclonic Rift for like 3 mana.
I just want to imagine overloading Cyclonic Rift all the time. One of my favorite cards. Yeah, so why don't you tell us a little bit about Arjun?
All right, Arjun the Shifting Flame. Arjun is a 5/5 flying Sphinx wizard for 4 red blue. You gotta have more wizards are they're probably the best creature type. Let's be real here.
Watsy probably agrees with you.
And Arjun's ability is that whenever you cast a spell, you Teferi's Puzzle Box yourself. You put all your cards in your hand at the bottom of your library, and then you draw that many cards.
It's kind of like Mind Moil on a stick.
Kind of like Mind Moil on a stick. It's a lot of people out there might be thinking, why is that good? It just means my hand is gone now, and now I'm having a hard time planning my turns, and it's amazing. Just hear me out. So he's not a commander. He's a 99 for Niv Mizzet the Firemind. Straight up. Because whenever you draw a card with Niv Mizzet, you deal 1 damage. So, you're playing your spell, draw a bunch of cards. Play spell, draw a bunch of cards. Then, I don't know, maybe you have Psychosis Crawler on the field, which is in this deck. Whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses a life.
Yeah.
So, I love him. Because anything...
Just imagine having this card with either Mind Moil or Teferi's Puzzle Box, or both on the field at the same time.
Yeah, you can just, draw through your entire deck in a turn pretty easily.
Yeah.
And then kill everyone. So, I love this card. Don't love it as a commander because it doesn't really do anything as a commander.
No, it's kind of expensive and doesn't protect itself. It's an engine, but not... Just imagine this thing dying twice, and you're already like, I have to spend 10 mana to recast this thing.
And it doesn't even do anything for me.
Mm-hmm. Like, you play it, and you're just like, I've got a 5/5 flyer. Go.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Not the best, but I know you like it.
Like I said, it's a 99 card, again.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about cats.
Cats.
Cats. Big fan, personally. We've got a card here, Illusory Ambusher. This is a cat illusion. It's a 4 and a blue 4/1, but it has flash, so this thing's gonna die. This thing will die in combat.
Oh yeah.
This thing's gonna die, but it's an ambusher. You flash it in before blockers, and then block their biggest thing ever. You block their freaking, Hydra. And the reason you do that is because whenever this card is dealt damage, you get to draw that many cards.
Yeah, so you block it, and then just pray to God that they don't give it trample.
Oh, God. Or ping it in response. You preferably do this to an opponent who is tapped out.
Yes.
Because people all the time tap out before they attack you.
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes.
Look, it's a freaking ghost cat that draws you cards.
No, it's an illusion cat. It's not even there.
A ghost cat. It's not a ghost cat, but
Yes.
I like to think of it as ghost cat. Yeah, I like that card. I was excited to see it in the blue-green deck because that's the one I purchased. And I wasn't expecting it there, honestly.
No, it's actually a little weird in that deck.
But card draw, so why not?
Yeah, it's good.
All right, so the other card that I wanted to discuss was one that I think has been discussed ad nauseum at this point. But that's Mizzix's Mastery. And we have to talk about this card just
Yes.
because of all the potential implications it could have. Mizzix's Mastery is a sorcery. It's 3 and a red. Exile target card that's an instant or sorcery from your grave. For each card exiled this way, copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. Then you exile this card. Now you might be saying, what do you mean for each card exiled this way? You only said 1. Well, that's because it has Overload. It's Overload for 5 red. That's triple red.
That is triple red.
And then you do that for every single instant and sorcery in your grave. Now, this card's a lot like Past in Flames, which is a very powerful card. Past in Flames, you cast it, you have to still pay for the cards in your grave, but you get to replay them. This you don't have to pay, but there's like a give and take there, right? You can just spend 4, but you only get to replay 1 card. You can pay 8, and they're all for free, but you've already paid 8. So if you had played Past in Flames, well, you probably were only going to spend a total of 8 mana that turn anyway, assuming you've got things in your grave that are mana producing spells, so your rituals and stuff like that. Some people have been talking about this in Legacy. It's possible. We don't play Legacy or Vintage. But It wouldn't surprise me. I've seen stranger things.
Yeah, I mean, it would, you don't see a lot of people getting up to 8 mana in Legacy, but,
Right.
you know, if you do, geez.
Yeah, in Legacy, I think this would have to just be the singleton, but there's always the I'm gonna pay 4 mana for this, and then I'm gonna play Enter the Infinite.
Yeah.
Or is it Omniscience? I always get those two confused.
Whatever one it is.
One is that's not the enchantment.
I'm not sure this is the enchantment. So,
Okay,
Enter the
so then
Infinite.
Enter the Infinite. And that's insane. I mean, that's a 12 mana card that you're getting for 4 mana.
Which seems alright.
Yeah. But yeah, that's Mizzix's Mastery. Seems crazy. It's probably pretty crazy in this deck, too, because you can actually overload it.
Yeah, it'll be stupid in this deck. So I want to talk about Gigantoplasm.
Sounds good.
Because Gigantoplasm, one, has the best art in the entire set. There's just no way around that. And two, is a clone that might actually be good.
You don't like clones?
Most of the time, no. Not since they changed the commander rule, or the legendary rule.
Yeah, good point.
So Gigantoplasm is a 0/0 for 3 and a blue. It's a creature type shapeshifter. Mm-hmm. It has the clone ability. It enters the battlefield as a copy of any creature that's on the battlefield, except that it gains X, and it gains pay X. This creature has a base power and toughness of XX, so it mirror entities itself. Exactly. And everyone knows Mirror Entity is a pretty good card, but that's because it does it to the entire team.
Right. I was gonna say, yeah, but its strength lies in the fact that it doesn't do it to itself.
Yeah. But this just basically it gives you a better version of either a card that you have or a card that your opponent has. So let's say you copy.
Is it safe to say this is just strictly better than Clone?
Clone is cheaper.
Is it?
So, yeah, Clone is 3 mana, I'm pretty sure.
You keep talking, I'm going to look that up real quick.
Okay, I will do that. So, where was I going with that? So, let's say in these decks, you copy your opponent's creature or your opponent's commander that gives it experience counters. Now you have two sources of experience counters. I mean, sure, you might not have the way to combo off to get those experience counters, but almost every single experience counter commander is pretty easy to get them.
Yeah, imagine copying a Mirren. Your stuff's gonna die.
Yeah, I mean, stuff dies.
Yeah. I just looked it up. Clone is a 4 mana card.
Really? What is the...
Yeah.
Oh, it's the Phantasmal Clone that is 3 mana.
Phantasmal Image, yeah.
Yeah.
That one's actually 2 mana.
I can't remember anything. I'm the worst.
Okay, so yes. What you're thinking of is the Phyrexian mana one, because that's 3 colorless and a blue still, but the blue is Phyrexian mana, so you can pay 3 to cast it.
Maybe. Okay, so yes, it is just straight up a strictly better clone. Has the same creature types, has the same ability, and then an additional ability.
Yeah, you don't ever have to use that ability, but you can.
I mean, it just makes your creature better than whatever it was. I mean, you're never going to pay 1 for that, or most situations you're not.
Exactly.
And it's also interesting to point out that it just has base power and toughness of XX. It's not till end of turn. It is permanent.
Yes.
Until you use the ability again, of course.
This is going to be a long podcast.
Yes, it is. And then we got... my second one is Seal of the Guild Pact, which... where is it at? It's really simple. 5 mana. It's an artifact. It enters the battlefield and you choose 2 colors. And any spell that is either of those colors is 1 less. So if it contains both of those colors, it is 2 less to cast. Not much to say about it, really. I just like it. It makes things less expensive. It doesn't just affect instants and sorceries. It affects every spell that you're going to play. It gives you a free cast of your commander, technically, which is cool.
That's true.
Um,
That's true.
I like it. I think it's good in pretty much any 2 or 3 color deck, because obviously in one
Yeah, I
color,
mean,
it's not going to be
it's
worth.
always nice to get a discount on your mana costs. It's
Yeah.
never a bad thing. My only gripe is that they didn't put this in every deck.
Yes, I think that they could have done a lot with the art.
Exactly, right? It's like, how cool would it have been if they had, one of these in every deck with different art shining over each of the symbols, and then like maybe in a future set, people are always like asking to finish the cycle, and then they finally do in a future set, and it could have been this big ordeal. And I don't even know if Seal of the Guild Pact is even that good because of how expensive it is, but who cares? It would have been cool.
Yeah.
I would have loved a Selesnya Guild Pact thing.
What else was I going to say that? I mean, it's mana reduction. Oh yeah, I feel like it's good in any 2 or 3 color deck. One color, obviously, it's just not worth the 5 mana to get a 1 mana cost reduction on every spell.
No.
And in a 5 color deck, you might not have a bunch of spells that are both those colors.
Yeah, and you're probably not going to have a lot of spells that aren't just like a bunch of actual colors.
Mm-hmm.
Like you might have a 5-color card that doesn't really have colorless in it.
Yeah. And then there are no 4-color legendary creatures, so that's unfortunate.
There are 4 of them. There's the 1 cycle of them. The Nephilims.
Those are not legendary.
What?
Yeah.
Am I just dumb?
You are just dumb. Anyway, let's move on to our next deck.
All right. So the next one is the Golgari deck, or the black-green deck. And I'm here to tell you a little bit about a commander known as Mirren of the Clan Nel Toth. Now, Wizards, gotta tell you something. Why'd you do this?
It hurts my heart.
Why'd you do this to us? Why you gotta go and make one commander so good and make all the rest so not as
Okay.
good?
So okay.
Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of good commanders in here and fun ones, but man, Mirren is so good. She's so good. So Mirren is a 3/4 for 2 black-green and has great art.
Oh yeah, it's amazing art.
Love the art. Her experience counter trigger is whenever another creature you control dies. This is gonna happen.
Yeah,
This
I
is
mean
going
it's
to happen.
EDH. Things die.
And this is a sacrifice deck.
Yeah.
It's focused around sacrifice and grave shenanigans. Your things die all the time. And unlike a lot of the other commanders, there is sort of like a cap you can reach for the amount of experience counters that you need to get, infinite value out of them.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is that, here's what happens. At the beginning of your end step, you choose a creature card in your graveyard, and if that card's CMC is less than or equal to the number of experience counters you have, you return it to the battlefield. And I'll get to the last part of that in a second here, but, if you get enough experience counters to where you have more experience counters than the CMC of all the creatures in your deck, you don't need any more.
Yep, it doesn't matter.
All you need is Mirren to be alive, to be getting those triggers, and you're always going to be reanimating something every single turn. You don't even need things to die anymore. Now that ability would be good. I mean, you're like, it's at your end step. All you have to do is have it survive until the end of your turn. You're bringing things back from the grave. That's not all. If the CMC is not less than or equal to the number of experience counters you have, you get to just put that card in your hand.
Mm-hmm. Which I think was a completely unneeded addition.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of glad it has it because it makes the card good, and I like good cards, but this thing is just
it puts her power level insanely above all the rest.
Because all you have to do is let her survive till the end step, and you're going to get value out of her.
Yeah,
you will. I mean, if you play this with no creatures in your grave, well, that was your fault. You just shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, well,
unless you're planning on having a bunch of stuff die immediately. but it's you're going to get so much value out of this card. That's all I can say. And if she doesn't die, if she doesn't stay off the field, you've basically lost. The engine that can be created with this card and certain other cards is insane.
Yeah, we've seen it happen,
Yes.
and it wasn't even hard to get going.
No, I mean, we're talking about precon decks against precon decks.
Mm-hmm.
You can say, well, you didn't have enough removal to take care of it, blah, blah. This is also a precon deck that we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're talking about a deck that's just like, I've got some commons, look out.
Like, literally, all that was needed to get this deck going when we played against it was Mirren, Bloodbarn, and another creature. Any other creature.
Yeah, Blood Baron really helped. Specifically, what's that card called?
It's the one that when it died, it got you a land.
Yeah. Oh no, the black one.
Oh, the black one? Oh.
With Evoke.
The one that kills a non-black, non-artifact creature. Yes. Shriek Maw.
Shriek Maw, thank you. Duh. Yeah, this plus Shriek Maw is disgusting.
Yeah, it was dumb.
Shriek Maw, kill something, bring it back to your hand.
Then you just do it again next turn.
Yeah, not to mention you're getting experience counters. Eventually, it's going to keep them back to the field. It's gross. But yeah, Mirren, my pick for probably the best commander out of all of them. It's just too good.
Yeah. It doesn't. Yeah, there's just no way to get around how good it is.
All right. You want to tell us a little bit about an insect?
Yes, I will be talking about Mazarek Krull Death Priest.
Mazarek.
Just a second. Where is he? Why can't I find him? There he is. Alright, so Mazarek. He is a 2/2 for 3 black green. It was an insect.
Bad card. Doesn't pass the vanilla test. Next.
Pretty terrible. We're just gonna go on. Don't even need to know the abilities. Anyway, Mazarek is a insect shaman. And actually, I think I do like this art probably the best of all the commanders. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
It is pretty good. It reminds me of Sliver Queen a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. He, I'm thinking it's a he. He has flying, and then whenever a player sacrifices another permanent, not a creature, just whenever a player sacrifices another permanent, put a +1/+1 counter on all creatures you control.
Including this. And it's including you sacrificing things.
Yes. So again, it's pretty easy to get going in this deck, for one. For two, it works well in a token deck because it just makes them all bigger constantly. It works well in a Voltron deck because he puts counters on himself.
Yeah, it could work well in that.
Although
it's nice when you have all the effects that make everyone sacrifice something.
Yes, Fleshbag Marauder.
Yes, as an example.
Yeah.
Or even Grave Pact.
Grave Pact. There's quite a few.
Yeah.
I just like him because I like messing around with +1/+1 counters. I feel like he'd be fun to play in a Skullbriar deck.
I could potentially see that.
Just because Skullbriar does silly things.
Skullbriar is good.
Skullbriar is really... I mean, he's a 1/1 for 2, which doesn't pass the vanilla test. But, I mean, whatever. He also reminds me of Thraxamundar, which is it's a commander that I've wanted to build for a while, but haven't gotten around to it. Who has a very similar ability, except that he only puts +1/+1 counters on himself. He's also a lot bigger, and when he attacks, he makes an opponent sacrifice a creature. But still, very similar.
The cards are very different, but they're both gaining counters from things being sacrificed.
Mm-hmm. They feel similar, but they have very different play styles, I'd say.
Yeah. Mazarek's pretty cool. And the art is pretty good, I'll give you that.
I like the art.
I have a hard time kind of figuring out what's going on, but...
It is just a bug doing bug stuff.
Like a bunch of legs and wings and stuff.
It's doing bug stuff. All right, go ahead.
Okay. So now I spoke about Mirren. Let me tell you a little bit about her pet dragon, the Scourge of Neltoth. Scourge of Neltoth is a zombie dragon, 7 mana, so 5 black black, for a flying 6/6. If that were all it was, would you play that card?
Not in EDH.
Yeah, maybe in limited.
I would definitely play it in limited.
Luckily for us, that's not all it does. So you can cast Scourge of Neltoth from your grave by paying black black and sacrificing 2 creatures. Now, that's still a hefty cost. Losing 2 creatures and still having to pay mana just for a 6/6 flyer can sound daunting. If you're playing in a deck with a bunch of tokens, or with, these synergies that happen when things are sacrificed or are dying, or both, or any of the above, like this deck, it's insane.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a combo enabler, or something that can take advantage of an already established combo. I mean, this is going to fuel Mirren. That's what's cool about this, is that they work so well together.
Mm-hmm.
Mirren likes when things die, and then this kills the things to get the experience counters. The experience counters allow this to keep coming back, either through its own ability or for free later on. It's like a 2-card combo. It's not like it goes infinite or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
but it gets the ball rolling super quickly. I mean, this thing needs to be answered, so people are going to want to kill it. If they do, they're kind of just helping you.
Yeah, it's fine. It's and it doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away. You have to
It doesn't go
exile it.
away.
You basically have to exile it and hope that they don't have a way to sack it in response.
Oh God, gross. So yeah, I like that card. And the other one that I'm going to bring up is a personal favorite of mine, Centaur Vine Crasher.
This was also on my short list, but you got to it first, so.
This is a plant centaur. It's 3 and a green for a 1/1 with trample. That's it. So I love this card because no, I'm just kidding. It enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the number of land cards in all graves. And whenever a land is put into a grave from anywhere, you may pay green, and if you do, you get to bring this back from the grave to your hand. So again, this thing just doesn't ever die, assuming that lands are dying.
Yep.
Which you're probably going to want to play this in a deck that's going to be killing lands and recycling lands and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all you need is Crucible of Worlds.
I mean, it is pertinent to note that it's a graveyard from anywhere, not from the battlefield or your hand. So any kind of dredge type mechanic will trigger him.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that. So yeah, that's even better. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, just imagine having this on the field, or I guess in the grave, and you're making your opponent discard cards, and they're like, I'll just discard this basic.
Yep. Yep.
Damn it. Curse you, Centaur Vine Crasher. No. I love this card a lot because it's a plant centaur, which means it can automatically go into my Karametra farming EDH deck.
I am excited to see the finished product of that. Alrighty.
So, yeah.
I'm going to talk about Thief of Blood, because Thief of Blood is super good.
It's quite good.
Thief of Blood won me a game when we played.
Yeah.
So, you're playing, and you're playing against, I don't know, maybe the green-blue deck, which likes putting +1/+1 counters on things all day long.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe spread out between the creatures on their side. There's about 35 counters or so. I don't know. Just 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 throwing it out there. And then you play Thief of Blood, which is a 6 mana, 4 and 2 black flyer. It's a 1/1. So obviously terrible card.
Yeah, of course.
Except when it enters the battlefield, you remove all counters from all creatures. or from all permanents. So
All permanents.
this also kills planeswalkers.
Yes.
Kills all planeswalkers that are on the battlefield. It removes -1/-1 counters if they're on creatures. And then Thief of Blood enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter for every counter removed.
Yes. This thing's going to be huge in most cases, but usually the biggest implication is that you're going to get a lot of value just from having it enter the battlefield. By
Yes.
killing planeswalkers, by interacting with counters that you couldn't otherwise interact with. This does not remove experience counters.
It does not, because it is experience counters and poison counters, because those are both on players.
Yes.
And players are not
permanents. Right. So don't make that mistake. They didn't need that to be on this card for this card to be good. It's still good.
It's still stupidly good.
It's very good. It will swing games in your favor. They will need to answer it. Once you do, it's going to kill you.
I mean, I was just thinking just now about a small combo. Obviously, in this deck, you can also put in Doubling Season, but that's not what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about Black Sun Zenith. You Black Sun Zenith and don't kill a bunch of things. You just leave them at like 1/1s, and you play Thief of Blood. And sure, all these things come back to full health, but then you have so many counters on this. It's just, oh man.
I know whenever I have a potential board wipe, I definitely want to use it to set up making one big flyer as opposed to getting rid of all the things on the field.
No, that's not as... See, you're not thinking... You're not being fun. This is about fun, not about winning the game.
I'm not being fun, correct.
But yes, so you can do interesting stuff with him. It is also pertinent to note that it does take counters off of your own permanents. So if you're playing a +1/+1 counter deck, you're going to lose all those counters to Thief of Blood. And yes. I mean, sure, you're going to have a huge Thief of Blood, but all your other creatures are going to be useless again.
Correct.
All right, well, let's... I'm on Bloodstore Thrynax?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Okay.
You almost said its name.
So Bloodspore Thrynax. It is a 4-mana 2/2. It's 2 and 2 green for a creature lizard. He has Devour 1. So when he enters the battlefield, you can sacrifice any number of permanents, and he enters with that many +1/+1 counters. Again, he's another Namba with Thief of Blood.
Thief of Blood, yeah.
But then he has an ability. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional X +1/+1 counters on it, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters on Bloodspore Thrynax.
Right, so it's a little bit like Master Biomancer.
It's very similar to Master Biomancer. It does silly things with Doubling Season, which is probably my favorite card ever in EDH.
Doubling Season is just so good in EDH.
Because think about it this way: you devour 5, or you devour 3 things. You get 6 +1/+1 counters, and then each creature enters with an additional 12.
It gets so out of control so quickly. It's ridiculous.
It's pretty funny. He is a card that is very likely going into my Ulash token +1/+1 counter deck, because it just does silly things. And yeah, +1/+1 counters just are fun. Devour is a good mechanic.
I agree.
All right.
Well, I don't know if I agree that Devour is a good mechanic.
I love Shut
because
up.
Devour come with it's a fun mechanic.
Devour is a good mechanic.
I like playing with Devour.
Devour is a good mechanic in a token deck.
Okay.
Just shut up. Let me have this.
On that note, we're gonna move to the red-white deck, and I think we're gonna need to get some more time allotted.
I think we might.
Because I think we're already past the time limit that we thought we were gonna go to.
Yeah, we're gonna have. It's gonna be a long one, guys.
Yeah. Wow, we even tried to shorten it. That's crazy. All right, so for the red-white deck, the Boros deck, if you will, I'm going to be talking about Anya. Anya, the
Anya.
merciless angel. Anya. Nya, 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 nya. And other, completely annoying noises. Anya is a 4/4 flying angel for 3 red white. That's Sarah Angel-esque stats. Okay.
Yeah.
Anya gets +3/+3 for each opponent whose life total is less than half their starting life total. And she also gets indestructible if there are any opponents who have half their starting life total. The flavor's good here. I like the flavor of merciless angel. She sees someone who's like maybe trying to retreat. They realize they're in trouble, and she's like, "No, I'm going to finish you off." And this thing can be big in a large multiplayer game. I don't think it's very good. This thing needs haste to be hyper effective. It dies to a lot of things.
Yeah, it's gonna.
And okay, yes, it will gain indestructible if the conditions are met. That's fine. There is a lot of exile removal in EDH. Any white player is going to have Path, Swords, Condemn, possibly, which is not exile, but
still gets rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. And so you can be as big as you want to be, but if you're going to be able to be killed and all you're doing is trying to attack for a lot of damage, that's not the most powerful thing you can be doing in EDH. Not in all formats, but in EDH especially.
Yeah, I think one of her kind of unintended biggest weaknesses is it actually punishes you for eliminating an opponent.
Yeah, which is weird.
So you get +3/+3 for each opponent who has life total less than half, and then you kill your opponent and you just lose that +3/+3 because there is no opponent.
Mm-hmm. And imagine there was only one person who had that. You just you kill them and you're like, I did it. Now my commander's just a 4/4 flyer. Not even indestructible. And you really have to, if you're in a multiplayer game, you really have to put yourself out there to kill somebody usually. You have to kind of leave your neck wide open to being slashed.
And it's EDH, so people will take that chance as soon as possible.
Absolutely. Usually, if you're playing a big EDH game, someone's going to die, and then it's just going to cause a chain reaction. Then somebody's going to kill the person who killed them, and the last person's going to be like, a cleanup crew, and just kill everyone,
Yep.
And this card does not help you with that sort of strategy.
Not at all.
So, why don't you go ahead and tell us about Kalemne?
I will tell you about Kalemne. Kalemne is a disciple of Iroas. She's she? Yeah, that's definitely she.
I think it's she, yeah.
Yeah.
We got it right.
She's a 3/3 for 2 red white. Giant soldier. Giant. Has double strike and vigilance.
Big.
She's the experience counter creature or commander for this deck. So whenever you cast a spell with converted mana cost, or creature spell with converted mana cost 5 or greater, you get an experience counter. And Kalemne gets bigger for each experience counter, +1/+1. So it's pretty obvious what this deck is trying to do. You cast a bunch of big creatures, you make Kalemne huge, you attack because you have double strike and vigilance, and you kill them with commander damage.
Yep.
that is what Kalemne is trying to do. I think that's a fine thing to want to do.
Yeah, I mean, you can complain that it's a little boring, but people are always going to do that when you get into a color combination like red white. Red white doesn't have a lot of wiggle room, it feels, in the color pie when it comes to EDH.
Yes.
Because you can't be a burn deck in EDH. You don't do enough burn damage. And, and white, you can't gain a bunch of life in a red-white deck and have that be your win condition usually. I really like the direction they went with this in making it a giant tribal deck.
Yeah, I think that is incredibly cool because they don't do too much in the way of tribal in the especially in the commander sets.
Yeah, because commander is usually not a good tribal format. Even still, they chose something. No, but I think they did a good job in this deck. It's, the giant tribal theme synergizes with Calamni's abilities without it just being like play a bunch of big dudes.
Mm-hmm.
You can go either direction.
And it does. You can tell it has some. What's the word? Some Voltron-y stuff in it. It's got Loxodon Warhammer, Lightning Greaves, stuff like that. So.
And Blade of Selves.
And Blade of Selves. Blade of Selves is not good on a legendary creature, though.
Oh, good point. Good point.
But yeah, it's you're either playing a bunch of big creatures, mostly giants because giants, or you're playing some big creatures, making Calamni big enough that it can just attack. That she can just check in.
Yeah. All right, so Calamni's pretty cool. Has a much better name than Anya.
Anya.
We're gonna keep doing that. If you can't handle that as a viewer, I'm afraid this might not be the podcast for you. So next up, I wanted to talk about the Magus of the Wheel. We had to look up how to say Magus. I did not know if it was Magus. Anyway, Magus. I forgot which it is now.
Of the wheel.
Well, no,
it's Magus.
Magus, damn it. Magus of the Wheel is a 2 and a red for a 3/3 human wizard. Now, okay, before I get into this, if you don't know what the Magus cycle is, it's more than just a cycle, but it's sort of a group of cards that have been printed since before now. They're always an artifact, enchantment, or spell on a stick. What that means is on a creature. And they're usually named by what card that they're referring to. So you've got something like Magus the Vineyard was referring back to Eladamri's Vineyard. Magus of the Disc, referring to Navinarel's Disc. And so on and so on. Magus of the Moon, referring to Blood Moon. There are a large handful of previous Maguses. This one is Magus of the Wheel, and it's referring to Wheel of Fortune. Not the show, the card. The ability on Magus of the Wheel is 1 and a red, tap and sack. Each player discards his or her hand and draws 7 cards. That is the ability of Wheel of Fortune.
Yep.
And these abilities are very strong in these sorts of decks like your Niv Mizzet deck, where you're just trying to get a lot of cards drawn. You don't necessarily have to have more cards than your opponent. You just want those triggers so that you can do something like deal a damage, drain them for 1, something like that.
Exactly.
So this card is very powerful. Being on a creature means that there are some sort of reanimation possibilities, bringing it back, re-sacrificing it, so on and so forth. Not necessarily in this deck, but you could see that happening.
No, its strength in this deck lies in the simple fact that it can refill your hand, and that's about it.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a cool card. I'm a little sad that they didn't make it a full cycle. I thought they might.
It would have been cool if they had made a full cycle of them, yeah.
Oh, well.
Alright, so I want to talk about some Blade of Selves. Blade of Selves is, I believe, the most expensive card in the set right now?
It is currently, yes.
Yeah. So Blade of Selves is a... Where is it? It's a 2-mana equipment. It equips for 4, and it just gives a creature Myriad, which is one of the new keywords. And Myriad is whenever the equipped creature attacks, for each opponent other than the one that is attacking, you make a token copy of it that is attacking those opponents. So it's really broken.
And the exile at the end of your turn.
Yeah, the exile at the end of turn, and they go away. But even putting this on something like, I don't know, a Thragtusk or a Siege Rhino.
Yeah, anything that's going to have enter the battlefield abilities.
It's disgusting.
Or even leave the battlefield abilities.
Or stuff that does something when it deals damage. Or just anything that is, it's...
Even just something big.
Yeah, even just putting it on World Spine Worm.
Yeah. I mean, we just spoke about how a lot of times in EDH you find yourself not wanting to go to kill somebody because then you're just wide open to be killed. Blade of Selves allows you to set up a word state where you're like,
I'm gonna kill everybody.
kill you and you and you, and then you just win, and you don't have to feel bad about destroying your opponents, which is kind of a sucky thing about Commander sometimes. So it makes sense why this card is expensive.
Yes. So Blade of Selves is going to be a fun card to play. It's going to be a good card. It's also interesting, again, with Doubling Season or Parallel Lives, because it makes double the amount of tokens.
Exactly.
It
is heavy to equip. It's 4 mana to equip.
But even then, in EDH, 4 mana is not really something too terrible.
Yeah, unless you're playing competitive 1v1, which not a lot of people are.
And it's not a very good card in that situation anyway.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't make any tokens.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's watch out for that card. It's going to be in a lot of decks.
Almost certainly.
And then my next card is Rite of the Raging Storm. I am a big fan of this card just because it's fun. It's a 5 mana enchantment, and it says creatures named Lightning Rager can attack you or planeswalkers you control. And at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player puts a 5/1 red elemental creature token into play named Lightning Rager. With at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice this creature. So
yeah.
you get a 5/1 every turn. The person next to you gets a 5/1 every turn. The person next to them gets a 5/1 every turn. But none of them are ever going to attack you. It's great. It might not be like the strongest card in the world, but you know, you just play it and watch people tear each other apart because they can't touch you.
Yeah, it's if you like chaos.
Yeah,
this card's gonna cause some chaos.
It seems like a lot of fun. I'm excited to find a deck to put that in.
Yeah, me too. No, I'm not.
You don't play the best color, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. All right, I'm gonna go back because we actually skipped one of mine.
Oh, we did. Jeez, missed that.
It's fine. I don't really like this card that much anyway. I just wanted to bring it up. Dream Pillager was the other card I wanted to talk about. This is a dragon. It's great art, but unfortunately, that's the thing I like the most about the card. This is a 7 mana 4/4 flyer, so 5 and 2 red. And the reason why it's so expensive for its stats is that it has a good ability, and that is whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get to exile that many cards from the top of your library, and until your end of turn, you may cast non-land cards exiled this way. That's cool. I mean, that's Red's sort of like new draw mechanic. This card, I don't think this card could have had bigger stats, and I don't think it could have had less of a CMC. I think it's balanced, but the problem with good cards like this is that when they're balanced, sometimes they become unplayable.
Yeah. They're just not good enough. They're not broken enough.
That's really the truth, is that this card isn't broken and therefore isn't good enough to be played in a lot of decks where you can just play broken cards. It's possible that in some sort of a red-focused, maybe dragon tribal deck, you want to play this. I'm not really sure. To me, I'm not unhappy they printed the card, but I don't personally see this getting a lot of play.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't like the exile and then you can cast this card until end of turn mechanic. I've never liked it because if you don't cast it, then you lose all those cards forever.
Right.
It's just it's very weak compared to just drawing a card.
Absolutely. And I think that becomes a little bit more of a problem when you're playing a 100-card singleton deck, where you can't just say, oh, I got rid of one of my 1 copies of my playset of this burn spell. It's like, oh, there goes my, 1 of 2 artifact removal spells. When
Oh, there goes one of my main win cons.
Yeah. So, yeah, not the greatest. But that's fine. Not every card needs to be great.
Yep.
All right, so we're on the last deck. My personal favorite deck.
Of course it is.
The This is the blue-green or the Simic deck. And I'm going to begin by talking about the non-experienced counter commander, Casito, the Orakai Archmage. And this guy's a snake wizard.
Wizard is. I still claim that wizard is the best creature type, especially when combined with animals.
So this is 1 green and a blue for a 2/2 snake wizard. And it's so good because it's a tribal commander as well. Green and a blue, activated ability. Target creature can't be blocked this turn, and if that creature is a snake, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Casito jumps out to me immediately for several reasons. One, snake tribal EDH sounds awesome. There are a bunch of decent snake cards, snake lords, things to make snake tokens in blue-green. It's great to have a commander that is in both those colors that can act as a lord of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing that immediately jumped out to me was that you can target yourself. Like, Casito can target itself with its own ability. So it can make itself unblockable. Obviously, it's a snake, so it's going to get the boost. And you can use that ability more than once per turn. It's only 2 mana to use it.
Yeah, it's good.
And that means that Casito can actually be a pretty viable Voltron commander, too.
Yes, you
Play
can.
a lot of Voltron, and being able to just for so cheap make your thing unblockable and potentially huge. You're playing green. You can have access to a lot of mana. And all you need to do is have this thing be able to be given hexproof or something like that. And away you go.
Yeah, just throw on some Swiftfoot boots.
Yeah, there you go. Like, that's it.
Yep.
And then you just play a bunch of counter spells and ramp, which are, green and blue are both very strong colors in EDH because counter spells and ramp. If you play that along with a strong strategy of play my cheap creature, you can't interact with it, it's going to kill you, well, you're probably going to win some games. You don't even need to worry about Snake Tribal.
Yep.
And also, this can target your opponent's things.
It can.
So if you're trying to help out somebody or something like that, you can also do that for political reasons.
He's very versatile. That's definitely for sure.
And that's why I like him so much. But I also like the guy that you're about to talk about.
Yes, Azuri Claw of Progress. 4 mana, 3/3. He's an elf warrior. A very sad elf warrior because he got Phyrexianized. And there he is. Azori's story is a sad one. But whenever a creature of power 2 or less enters the battlefield, you get an experience counter. Pretty simple to do. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, you put X +1/+1 counters on another target creature where X is the number of experience counters you have.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very obvious way, a very obvious commander to build around. Like, you just play a bunch of little tiny creatures and overrun type effects and just make them bigger.
Yeah, and the fact that it's not cast and it's entered the battlefield is a really big deal because it's very easy to be in blue-green and make tokens.
Yep, that's another thing. It does make a ton, or it does like tokens quite a bit. Because, most tokens are 1/1s or 2/2s. Especially in green.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I like him. Again, he does stupid things with Doubling Season.
Very stupid things.
Doubling Season is really that Doubling Season is a stupid card.
Yeah, they can never put it back in standard or something like that. Because,
no, because
probably not. Just because of the way it interacts with planeswalkers.
Mm-hmm. It breaks planeswalkers just right open.
Yeah, they probably would have put it back in standard, but they said no, and then they made the other one.
Yeah, so it's what?
What is the other one called?
Oh, Parallel Lives?
Parallel Lives. I can never remember the name of that one.
Yeah, the one that
Yeah.
only affects tokens.
Exactly. I think that they would have brought it back then if they could have.
Yeah, they just can't. They can't bring it back with the counter effect that's on it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it does stupid things with doubling season, so it gets the Eric Nappy seal of approval.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about some of the cards that are seen in this deck. I'm going to begin by going back to Command Beacon, which I brought up earlier. Again, it really surprises me that they put this card in only one of the decks, and I'm kind of surprised why they put it in this one only. It feels like this one could have been in another deck.
Yeah, because you're probably not going Voltron with this, and that's normally what you want this for.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, it's just nice to have almost like a free mulligan on your commander, almost. But I don't know. It's a little weird. I mean, I don't know. Either way, Command Beacon is a good card. It's a land. We should talk about what it does. You can tap it to add one colorless to your mana pool, or you can tap it and sacrifice it to put your commander into your hand from the command zone. Now, the reason why this is a big deal is for a couple reasons. One, when you cast your commander from your hand, you don't have to pay extra costs associated with it, as you know, coming from the commander sort of tax, right? So even if your commander has died several times, if you cast it from your hand, you only have to pay the normal amount. But this also is powerful for certain specific creatures like Phage.
Yes. Kind of a big deal about Phage.
Yeah, normally you would have an incredibly hard time playing Phage as commander. It is possible, but it's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
This just says, oh, just play Phage.
Yep.
Just go tutor up this land, and there you go. So there are a lot of implications for this land. It can be played in any deck.
Yeah, I mean, it's never going to be a bad card in a commander deck.
Indeed. But yeah, I'm still a little surprised they didn't put in everyone. Maybe it was just because they needed to give a reason to buy all the decks. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Besides that, I want to mention Skullwinder. So Skullwinder immediately stuck out to me. I'm a big fan of Eternal Witness type effects, regrowth effects, if you will. And this is, you know, first they gave us regrowth, then they gave us Eternal Witness. Then there's a long span of time, and they gave us Green Warden of Marasa, which is like big Eternal Witness, right? But I guess before that they gave us Den Protector.
Yeah, they did give us Den Protector.
Flip Eternal Witness. Now they've given us Eternal Hissness. Thank you.
I do love the pun.
Eternal Hissness, as I'm calling it. Skullwinder is 2 and a green for a 1/3 Death Touch snake. But when it enters the battlefield, you return target card from your grave to your hand. If that were it, this card would be busted. This card would just be 2 for 1 city. It also says, then choose an opponent. That player returns a card from his or her graveyard to his or her hand. So it gives a mirrored effect for balancing purposes. Because what I don't like about Eternal Witness is that the body is effectively irrelevant. The fact that it's a creature is only relevant when you're playing something like Revelark, you know, or Sun Titan. And Skullwinder still works with those cards, but also is a 1/3 Death Touch, which means that it's probably going to trade with something important in combat. The fact that it has 3 toughness means that it's probably going to be able to kill a lot of tokens without just trading with them.
Yep.
Nobody's going to want to attack into this guy.
No, you really just can't. You got to fly over him.
Exactly. And because in addition to that, you're also getting value out of it as soon as you have it enter the battlefield, it has a lot of potential. I really like this card. It's also a snake. Make it unblockable or something.
Yep. It's a snake.
It's a snake.
All right. So yeah. I'm going to, let's see, Azuri's Predation. Something I wanted to bring up. Because it's good. It's expensive. It's super expensive. It's 8 mana for a sorcery, and then for each creature your opponents control, you put a 1/1 green beast, and they fight.
Yes.
I'd say about 9 times out of 10, this is a one-sided board wipe. You get a bunch of beasts, and they have nothing.
Yeah.
And that is so broken. Even for 8 mana. It puts you so far ahead, and unless you get Sever the Bloodline, I think you might have a little bit of experience with. Unless that happens,
we had a game where that was my only way to get back in the game, and then I used it, and I was like, haha, got this on lockdown now. And then it just got immediately Sever the Bloodline and killed all my beasts. I'm like, well.
But I mean, beyond something like that or another board wipe, you are so far ahead that you probably can't lose.
It is insane.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely insane the amount of value you get.
It's crazy. Also, they're tokens, so more broken stuff with doubling season parallel lives.
Yeah, exactly.
just more broken stuff. It's a good card. This is a card you're playing in probably most of your green decks and definitely all your token decks.
Yeah, I'm glad that I have a copy of this card now.
Yeah, I need to get one.
A lot of decks. Yeah,
I need to get one.
Exactly. It's expensive because it needs to be.
Yep. And then we have Arachnogenesis, which...
Arachnogenesis.
If you know me, which most of you don't, I hate Fog. I despise Fog. I think it is one of the worst cards they've ever printed. It's terrible. This is Fog, except that it's actually good.
Yes, they keep making better Fogs.
They keep making better Fogs, and they need to. It's 2 and a green for an instant, and you put X 1/2 green spider tokens with reach onto the battlefield, where X is the number of creatures that are attacking you. And then you prevent all damage all combat damage that would be dealt by non-spiders. So you make a bunch of spiders, you group block one of their bigger creatures, probably, maybe take out another one of their smaller creatures, and then you have a bunch of spiders, they lost some creatures. I mean, all upside
and
here.
And then on your turn, you just attack them with all your spiders.
Yeah, and then you have a ton of spiders.
Yeah. I mean, this is, if you're playing a mirror match between two token decks, a lot of times it's going to come down to who has the overrun.
Yep.
This not only counters an overrun, but then it sets you up to play your own overrun.
It really does. You're even better overrun probably at that point.
Mm-hmm. This card's really, really good. It's just good. It's really good.
Yeah. Like I said, it's Fog if Fog was any good.
Yeah.
All right, so that gets us through our main section. We're already over for time, so do we want to go over the Confluences and Thought Vessel, or?
Let's see here. We should do it quickly.
Okay, let's do that quickly.
Let's quickly talk about Thought Vessel first.
Okay, so that was mainly my deal. I like Thought Vessel. It's 2 mana. It taps for 1 mana. It gives you no maximum hand size. It's a good card in EDH because a lot of times you're going to be drawing a lot of cards. It's not as good as Reliquary Tower or Venser's Journal, unless you, as far as Reliquary Tower goes, unless you have a artifact-based deck. But at the same time, it does what you want it to do, and it's 2 mana, so it's just kind of I would say, added in on top of Reliquary Tower and Venser's Journal, if you want that kind of effect.
If you're playing a deck like Kruphix, where... I mean, well, first of all, if you have Kruphix, you're going to have that ability most of the time anyway because you have Kruphix. But if you're playing a deck where you're going to draw a lot of cards, you're going to want this effect, and you're probably going to want this effect multiple times in your deck so that you can make sure to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And, for example, like Zagana or something like that. This kind of effect is very powerful. It's not the best one out there, but it's available if you want it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Anyway, so the Confluences.
Yeah, let's quickly touch on these before we get out of here. So let's begin with Righteous Confluence. We can go across the color pie.
Okay.
Righteous Confluence is the white one. 3 white for a sorcery. Now, the template to all of these is choose 3. You may choose the same mode more than once, and then there are 3 different modes. So there are 9 different ways that you can cast this card in any of the cards. The 3 modes for Righteous Confluence are put a 2/2 Knight with Vigilance onto the battlefield, exile an enchantment, or gain 5 life. So as an example, you can do one of each. You can destroy or exile 2 enchantments and gain 5 life. You can just gain 15 life. You can do whatever you want. You choose 3. You can choose the same more than once. I think this one's like one of the weakest out of the 5.
I would agree with you there, yeah.
I mean, it's okay.
Yeah,
I would play this in a Trostani deck.
I think this is going to be a common theme through most of them, but I wish it was instant speed.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, they can't all be instant speed. Not everyone can be blue or black.
Yeah. I feel like the white one probably would have worked better as instant speed. Like the red one and the green one, I feel are less important in that way. But the white one,
getting those tokens at instant speed is important.
Exactly. You want the tokens at instant speed.
Yeah, it's a shame. Mystic Confluence is probably the best one, though.
Mystic Confluence,
or at least
is pretty
it could
good.
be tied with the other instant speed one.
Yeah. So it's 3 blue, instant speed, obviously. Same modal choices. The modes are counter a target spell unless the controller plays 3, return target creature to its owner's hand, or draw a card.
Unsummon, cantrip.
So, I mean, I'm gonna guess most of the time you're probably gonna be using this to counter spells unless the controller plays 6 and then draw a card. I feel like that's probably its best mode.
I feel like its 2 modes are gonna be that, and if they pay 3 and draw 2 cards.
Yes, that too.
This card is very powerful for what it does. It has the word draw card on it. It has the word counter target spell on it. And then it even has more. It is similar to Cryptic Command. I know you're going to have people out there who hear that and they go, but this isn't Cryptic Command. We know it's not Cryptic Command. Nothing is ever going to be Cryptic Command. It's okay to be close or similar to Cryptic Command. You can still be good.
Yes.
And this card is still good. It's very good. And will probably be a staple to many, if not all, blue decks in the future.
Yep. I'm probably looking to get one. So
yeah, I mean that's why it's, I believe, the second most expensive card in this set.
Yep. Stupid expensive cards.
And the reason why it's so good is because it's instant speed. I mean, obviously you need to be to counter spells, but compared to the other sorcery speed ones, I mean, think about the power difference between this one and Righteous Confluence.
It's huge.
You want to gain 15 life at sorcery speed or draw 3 cards at instant speed?
Exactly.
Stupid. All right, Wretched Confluence is the black confluence. It is 3 black for an instant. All right, still an instant. Same everything. The choices are target player draws a card and loses 1 life. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. Or return target creature card from your grave to your hand. Not the battlefield, your hand. This one could be argued as the best one next to Mystic Confluence. They both draw cards. They both are removal. And this one has a little bit more options for card advantage. Because you can return things from a grave to your, again, a regrowth effect, although it's only for creatures.
Mm-hmm.
I could see myself in a position where at instant speed I go, okay, well, I'm going to bring these 3 really important creatures from my grave back to my hand. I'm just going to win now. Like, we've run you out of removal. Now I have my 3, my Shieldred, my freaking Scourge of Neltoth, and my, I don't know, Thief of Blood. Just like 3 really important cards, and you're just like, God, I already killed those, though.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first mode, you're pretty much only ever going to be targeting yourself.
Yes, unless they're at 3 life.
Yeah, unless they're at 3 life, which this is probably the most hilarious way to kill them.
Yeah, and it can be used to kill something big with indestructible.
Yep. So yeah, it'll be good.
I agree.
Okay, Fiery Confluence is the cheapest of them. It's our red one. It's 2 red red, same modals. It is a sorcery, and it deals 1 damage to each creature, 2 damage to each opponent, or destroys an artifact. This is just gonna be kind of like a reach burn spell. I feel like it's almost always gonna just be 6 damage to each opponent, unless you want to take out some low health or low toughness creatures.
Yeah.
It's
I
very
like this one very much.
it's very rare that you're ever going to be destroying artifacts with it. Like, I feel like it's just a reach card.
Which is silly because EDH is not about reach.
Yeah.
Usually. I think more often than not, you're actually going to be using the first ability to kind of board wipe Tokedex. Maybe you get a little bit of extra damage in addition to that, but beyond that, not really. You might destroy some artifacts, but beyond that, maybe not really.
Mm-hmm.
So, not very strong. And finally, we have Verdant Confluence, the green one, the most expensive one. 6 mana, 4 and 2 green. This one's also a sorcery. Same thing. Choices are put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature, return target permanent card from your grave to your hand. Permanent card. Search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, shuffle your library. So Rampant Growth. I do like this one. Much like with the Wretched Confluence, this is kind of like one of those situations where you go, okay, we're both kind of top decking. Oh, I top decked this. Now I have 3 more amazing cards. Don't go onto the battlefield. It doesn't matter. It's card advantage. And it's specific card advantage from things that have already needed to be answered before.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, it's strong. It'd be stronger if it was instant speed because of the +1/+1 counters.
Yeah.
But it'll be fine. And then, if you don't have if you only have 2 targets in your graveyard, you go get a land.
Yeah, I mean, if for some reason you're looking to get a lot of land as well, like a lot of mana, you could just Rampant Growth 3 times. It's also landfall triggers. If you're playing
it does landfall trigger. So yeah,
I like it. Yeah,
it's not bad. One other thought: there are the myriad cycle. I don't think any of them are that exciting. That's all I have to say about them.
Yeah, boring.
Except for maybe the blue one that draws you cards.
And that's kind of a rule of thumb for anything.
Yeah. Like that's, I think, the only one that I would even think about being excited about.
I agree. All right, well, that's all the cards we're going to discuss today.
At least in the main bit. If you're watching on Twitch, we will do our Q&A, like we always do.
Yeah. Indeed. But apart from that, I want to thank you all for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed the format that we did this. Hopefully it wasn't too long for you. This is longer than we expected.
We were aiming for an hour, but it's a lot to talk about.
Really is. Makes me scared of the future of these set reviews.
Yeah, we might. Yeah, it's gonna be a problem. It's gonna be a problem.
That's crazy. So yeah. So thank you for listening. If you are listening through YouTube, don't forget to subscribe if you would like to hear more. Give us a like if you enjoyed. It's going to really help us get this thing off the ground. If you're listening through other means, be it iTunes in the future once we get on there, or just any other podcasting site that you're through, thank you for listening, first of all. And also, again, just if there's any way you can help us, favorite, subscribe, comment, anything, that's really going to help us a lot.
Obviously, you can follow us here or you can follow us on Twitch. Twitch.tv/TheTopDeckCast. We're on Twitter at the Top Deckcast. Where else are we at? YouTube, which we still don't have a custom URL for yet. We need more subscribers, so go find us on YouTube and subscribe, please. Um,
You can also email us any questions or information you
yes,
have at thetopdeckcast@gmail.com.
you can do this. Um, I think that's all the plugging we need to do.
Plugs acquired. All right, well then, with that said, gonna thank you all one last time for listening, and until next time, may you never be mana screwed. See you guys.
All right, we're clear. So chat, my favorite people. My favorite people are the chat. Don't tell anybody who's listening on YouTube that. uh, but do you guys have any questions for us?
I see that Shampi asked about the new Azurian Sage of Hours. Yeah, I actually forgot to talk about that, unfortunately. That combo is crazy. It's just you can find yourself in a situation where you take infinite turns.
Yeah, that does seem a little broken.
Yeah, I totally forgot to mention that. I was aware of that, and I intended to talk about it. Totally forgot about it.
I forgot that Sage of Hours was a card, but now I remember.
Yeah, that being potentially possible is nice. You know, a lot of times it is nice in an EDH deck to have an infinite combo. You don't have to shoot for it every time, but as a way to just finish, you know, a 4-hour game,
Yeah,
it's nice.
yeah. Like I have the one infinite combo in my Niv Mizzet deck,
And I've got the one combo in my Sigarda deck with Sigarda.
Isn't that just when you play Sigarda?
Yeah.
Yeah, cause like with Niv, I have the infinite draw combo, which in that deck means infinite damage.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So
any other questions
yeah,
before we go?
we love to talk about ourselves. I mean, Magic. What about proliferation? I mean, that is a thing that you can do. I think it's. I don't know that the effects are strong enough to build around a proliferate experience counter deck.
I agree.
At least at this point in time.
There are some proliferate cards that you could potentially see yourself playing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that I would go too far out of my way to play a bunch of proliferate cards. I mean, you really only get to play them in the Azuri deck, I think.
I think that's the only place that it really makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think there are a lot of proliferate cards in the other colors, if I recall correctly.
The only proliferate cards I really know about are Contagion Clasp and Contagion Engine, which are both artifacts.
That's true. Okay, yeah, I forgot about those two. So you could technically play in any of your decks.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I think that you're going to find yourself having an easier time just getting experience counters the way that you already could.
I think you get plenty that way, at least in the pre-con decks.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, you can make a proliferate experience counter. I'd love to see a 5-color proliferate experience counter deck. Just because.
That would be silly.
All right. We'll stick on for another minute and a half. If you guys can get some questions in. I mean, we'll stay on longer if we'll give you another minute and a half for questions.
You only get a minute and a half. Oh man, I'm feeling the fatigue after that one.
That one was felt like a bit of a marathon.
Yeah. What have we done?
We're gonna have to get more storage.
Yeah, like we just actually don't have a choice now. We won't be able to upload this unless we get more storage.
I was not expecting that to be an issue, ever.
Yeah, I thought it might be slightly above, and maybe we had to cut something out. No,
But,
it was way above.
Yeah, we just went like a half an hour over.
We basically doubled the amount.
All right, I guess.
Yep. I
So you
think
guys are done. Thanks a lot for watching.
absolutely.
We enjoy making it. We enjoy interacting with you guys after the stream and off the stream and other places. So, send us an email if you want. Shoot us actually, probably the best way to get in touch with us is shooting us a message on Twitter.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And again, thanks for watching, and we will see you in about 2 weeks.
Yep.